Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another week of incredibly fast-paced racing action in the one and only iRacing official GTE Sprint Series by CONSPIT. It is 2025 Season 1 and we have marched our way into Week 6. Last time out we had our first ever top split broadcast on week number 5 at Road America, and what a week of racing it was as our drivers did battle there in the US state of Wisconsin. Today we have made our way into what is one of the neighbouring states, albeit a distant state if you will, all the way over to the US state of New York for the one and only Watkins Glen International Raceway. Also known as the Glen, an affectionately loved circuit and widely considered to be the revival place of road racing in the United States of America following the Second World War, is a circuit that has much remained the same since its inception, whether it be in terms of its layout, albeit the introduction of the boot has been one of the big themes of changes at this circuit over the course of its expansive history. But if it's not the layout that's remained the same all the way through, then one thing that certainly has remained the same regardless of which layout our drivers race on is the frills and spills that come with the circuit. With its high multitude of heavily cambered corners, whether they be on camber or off camber, it is a circuit that's not to be missed and demands absolute precision from drivers, as they need to carry every mile an hour they can into and out of the corners, but carry too much and they may find themselves understeering wide and losing valuable time. But as we get ready to go racing once again today, in the quarantine booth you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and in terms of our schedule, we've got a one and only race day, and that is coming up in approximately what will be 4 minutes time. It'll be a 45-minute race, and well, we look forward to seeing who is going to be taking the spoils after what was an incredible round of racing last time out at Road America. But of course, as we make our way into this week, well, let's take a look back at our championship calendar and what we've still got lying in wait. And as we can see, we've moved on to week 6. We have completed 5 weeks already. We still do have the best part of another 7 to go, including today. And here we are at the Watkins Glen International Circuit. After today, we'll be making our way to Portugal for the Algarve International Circuit. And then we will, of course, be making our way back to the United States of America for a double header at Road Atlanta in week 8. And week 9, the WeatherTech Raceway at Laguna Seca, which is highly hyped, no doubt about it. And then for week number 10, we'll make our way to Italy for the Imola circuit, also known in full as the Autodromo International Enzo Edino Ferrari. And then in the penultimate week of racing, week 11, we'll be heading to Detroit for the Grand Prix circuit at Belle Isle. Then we'll bring it all to a close at the Autodromo Nacional Monza, and well, the Italian Temple of Speed is where we'll be seeing all our rivalries between our drivers settled week in, week out. But of course, you're tuning in today to the 1900 GMT or Universal Coordinate Time. That's UTC, what is top split. And well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk a little bit about our circuit for today. It's the one and only boot layout of the Watkins Glen International Circuit, located near the village of Dix in Schuyler County of the US state of New York. And as we can see from the circuit map provided by iRacing, and a big thank you to iRacing for their absolutely brilliant circuit maps that are available, it is a circuit which is absolutely one to be beholden, with its contours and indeed its fast-flying corners throughout. As our drivers make the way down the start for this straight, those straights look long, but I can promise you they're not as long as they look. They'll make the way into 90 right at turn number 1, the opening right-hander there, where it's all about nailing a tight apex before powering your way out and on to the run up the hill through the S's at turns 2 and 3. And then it'll be on to the first main straight, heading down out to the curvature of 4 in towards the bus stop chicane, and that's where we'd normally see the circuit diverge into its inner loop layout if we were just running the cup layout. But as they make the way through the bus stop and into the outer loop, they'll find themselves going a bit further downhill in terms of elevation into the boot section, which consists of turns 6 through to 9, starting with the infamous chute corner, which is heavily off cambered. And then it'll be uphill in towards toe corner, particularly as you make your way to the apex, then on the backstretch up towards Hillwood Height, uphill again to rejoin the main cup layout at turn number 9 on the road surface transfers, which can catch a driver out. And the final 2 corners to turns 10 and 11 will complete the run for our drivers before they'll need to do it all over again. Well, that's where we're racing, and in terms of our rules, well, it's an open setup series with fuel loads restricted to 50%. That will mandate a pit stop when we do go racing. As for the race itself, well, the grid is set by a closed qualifying session, which is currently ongoing. The race shall commence via a rolling start, and while drivers shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 16 or more instant points, and they'll be disqualified at 25 or more instant points. But that's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. You're all here for one thing, and so are we, and that is some good old-fashioned racing. And well, as this qualifying session gradually comes to a halt, and a number of drivers now, I believe, are coming to the end of their run and getting ready to park up, with the fact they do have what is 2 flying laps available to them, which must be completed in the 8-minute window. We've got an absolute multitude of drivers here today, some of whom you may be familiar with, others you may not be, and indeed, from week to week, we'll see different drivers. In terms of our top split strength of field for this week, it is 3,026, but rounded to the nearest, what is 100, you could say it's 3.0k, as you can see there in the top left above the timing tower. As we do look here to Stanley Debut in the Porsche 911 as he makes his way across the line. Let's go to one last lap here for Debut. What will it be as he comes across the line? I don't believe he's going to improve too much. Well, yes, he does indeed. A 141.715, so good improvement there to jump up into the top 10. We also do have Jaroslav Coleman here making his way on around, coming around what is there, I do believe, toe corner in the infamous BMW M8, or the massive grille machine as it's also known. And as he makes his way on down towards what will be the next set of corners, well, coming down into none other than Hill Corner very shortly. Well, on the brakes he goes, and looking as though right now everything is gradually coming together. Well, can he find a bit more time out there? That is going to be the big question, as meanwhile what is Artur Zucht is still up into P3 there, and well, the driver parks up and decides he's done enough. And then we do look to Sylvain Delpech, who we did see last time out at Road America in this same slot a week ago, and put on a phenomenal run there to take home what was a top 5 finish, and looking to do the same as he makes his way towards the timeline, going for the final corner. A very tricky corner to get right, given the fact that exit was so close as he grazes the wall there. My goodness, and Delpech practically running it all the way to the limit, and well, in the end that contact still has completely crumpled his aspirations of improving, and so he will stay at P2. And it looks as though Santo Jensen will be taking that pole position unless Grusha can have an absolutely phenomenal end to what would be this qualifying session, albeit almost 3 seconds off the pace currently. Doesn't look as though he's going to improve too much, but we'll have to wait and see. And we'll in the end will stay P21, it would look like. In fact, we also do have some laps coming in from Alpa Patan, who's just come across the line then, the Ferrari 488, but no lap set by Todd Ali. And well, it does look, Ali I should say, and it does look as though therefore we're going to have what will be our 24 starters on this running order, albeit the majority of them setting laps, but Alia has yet to set a lap, and therefore be starting from the very back as we come to the end of qualifying. And well, as Grusha makes his way into the bus stop chicane, he's not going to get another lap in. This is going to be just a little bit of warm-up practice, because 8-minute strikes on the clock, and with that we must head to the grid. As our drivers make their way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for today's race. Starting on pole position, it's Christopher Santo Jensen ahead of Sylvain Delpech. Behind them on row number 2, it'll be Artur Zucht ahead of Jeremy Kaufman, and then we do have behind them on row number 3 Greg DePaul ahead of Michael Struble. We then have Gustavo Colici in P7 ahead of Radoslav Zukowski in P8, and then completing the top 10 it's Cedric Boissier, who we saw last time out of Road America, having mixed fortunes there but hoping for more today, and Alpa Patan, who starts P10. Behind them on row number 6 it's Juan Aragonés ahead of Stanley Debut, and then on row 7 it will be the combination of Artur Strzelski ahead of Rodney Cropper. We have Emil Stansiu at P15 ahead of John Jennings, P16. And then Jean-Philippe Emond in P17, the Canadian driver, just ahead of the Argentine of Marcelo Hernan. And then we have completing the top 20, Hayden Fowler and Jaroslav Coleman. On row number 11, our penultimate row of the grid, it will be Jakub Hevel. And then we do have Martin Grusha starting P22. And on the final row of the grid, to complete our 24 starters for this top split race, it'll be Alessio Borghini and Todd Ali. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's how our grid lines up. And well, our drivers are practically set and ready to go. They haven't got long, but of course they do have what is that rolling start. And with it, it will be a full formation lap to get them underway today. And well, it's definitely going to be a long formation lap. Not quite as long as Road America, but it gives our drivers time to get themselves composed. And well, of course, if you jump on board here with the likes of none other than Christopher Santo Jensen, well, he's going to be feeling as though right now he'll want to just gradually get himself built up as we sit inside where's the Corvette C8, and well, as he gets ready to go, we'll be thinking about the fact what can he do to get a bit of tyre temperature, and also be thinking about the strategy. Does he want to push hard right at the start to break away? Does he want to try and take it easy in order to bring those tyres up to temperature? But only he as a driver will be able to make those decisions, and indeed you've got to play it smart. But as we can see, as we look to the exterior cameras once again, well, our pace car is about to pull away, and when it does so, the field will follow. And well, when we do complete that formation lap, we will be green flag racing. But as we can see, our leaders gradually started to pull away, and the whole field now begins its journey away from the starting line. And as they gradually make their way off, we do have a good mix of cars here today, in terms of the fact we've got a rather limited number of Corvettes, which is quite strange given the fact we have seen the Corvette so far this season be the strongest car on paper. At least if you put a driver, it would seem drivers of equal skill across the different cars. What you normally find is the Corvettes just had an edge at a good number of circuits, but with one one Corvette on pole. We then do have what is 4 Porsche 911s right behind, and then another Corvette in the form of Gallucci. So therefore it does seem as though once again the Porsche is the people's choice. The Corvette does seem to be at the speed machine, and then also in amongst that, let's not forget we have also got the likes of what is the Ford GT, and we see one in the hands here, boys here once again bringing out the infamous American machine, and he's got the Ferrari of Patan just alongside him there, starting on that 5th row of the grid as they make the way on around. And we also do have a couple of BMWs out there, and well, in fact to be precise, 3 BMWs. Right at the back of them all is Jaroslav Coleman, who starts from what is P22 today as he makes his way on around. And we also do have the BMW of what is Jakob Havel, and we can see him here just gets himself up to speed, and also starts a bit further right is none other than Artur Strzelczyk, as we do see Strzelczyk starting here in what is P12. Well, those BMWs make the way on through, and in terms of what we can expect of form, well, we do know the BMW is normally a car that is a little bit more optimised for the straights, but also it's the outlier in the machines here in the GTE class, or the GT Endurance class, in the fact that it does have the engine mounted in the front. It is front mid-engine rear-wheel drive, so what that means is the engine is ahead of the driver, but it's located over or behind the front axle as much as possible in order to centre that mass. Meanwhile, the rest of the machines racing here, whether it be the Porsches, the Ferraris, the Corvettes, or alternatively what is the Ford GT, the engine is in the mid-engine rear-wheel drive configuration now, whereby the engine is directly behind the driver, but also not over the rear axle, which is strange when you think that Porsche 911s are typically known for having a rear-engine rear-wheel drive layout, where the engine is over the rear axle, but not quite with the Porsche 911 in the GT class, the outlier of its own manufacturer spirit. But therefore we do have 4 machines which are all mid-engine rear-wheel drive, and one which is front-engine rear-wheel drive, and the BMWs therefore will have better balance of tyre wear over the distance, but they won't have as much rotation typically, and that is the downside to the BMW, is what you gain in the spread of tyre degradation and temperature, you lose out in the fact you have that natural rotation ability in the other cars. But the BMW, if it gets a good exit out the corners, can absolutely blast itself away. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are not too far away now, given the fact our formation's already making its way up towards turn number 9. We are rejoining then what is the traditional cut layout of the circuit as they make the way over the road surface transfer, and with the pace car a little bit further ahead, we are only now about 10 seconds away from seeing green flag racing action for 45 minutes here at the Watkins Glen International Circuit. Can Samso Jensen lead the way from pole position and take victory, or will the Porsche crowd behind him swarm and attack immediately? Well, without further ado, it's time for us to find out. And well, he goes immediately on the final corner. He doesn't hesitate to pull the trigger, and Samso Jensen is away, and we are green flag racing for 45 minutes here in the United States of America, in the US state of New York, as Samso Jensen makes his way down towards turn number 1. The field immediately attacking behind, as we can see there, almost getting very tasty too wide. That's Zukowski versus Patan. Patan on the outside in the Ferrari 488, and as they roar their way on past our cameraman here, with the engines absolutely roaring up to a crescendo, and as they head up the hill, well, we do have some change. Gustavo Colucci now up in a P4. Brilliant start from the second of the Corvette drivers inside the top 10, making some early progress as they now come on down. Where's the first main straight? Heading up towards the bus stop. You can see some 2 wides further behind. Patan still in a fight there with Strubel as they come into the braking zone. Patan goes very deep, lock up on the front brakes, and that's going to send him straight on there, take to the grass. He'll rejoin, but he'll rejoin conservatively. Meanwhile, Jean-Philippe Edmond losing out versus Stanciel as they run their way in towards turn number 5. Down and around they come, and as they make the way onwards towards 6, coming down into Chute Corner, well, still more fighting to go here, and that is going to be, I believe, Edmond having to try and defend, as he's got a lot of pressure on Rodney Cropper behind him. Cropper in the Ford GT absolutely on attack right now. Cropper hasn't gained or lost any places, but he's had to work hard in order to make sure that he doesn't lose any ground. As we can see there, Jaroslav Coleman going a little bit deep, coming through toe corner as he brings it back together now, heading down towards hill. Well, these engines are absolutely roaring as much as they possibly can. They're all going full pelt at this point and coming onto the brakes. It's side by side between Coleman and Jennings. Jennings on the inside there in the Ferrari 488, the black Ferrari. As they head up the hill in towards turn number 9, well, side by side they roll off the apex, and brilliant defensive drive from Jaroslav Coleman in holding on as they come towards the end of this lap. We've got some dirt being kicked up there up front, and speaking up front, we look back inside the top 5, and this is Greg DePaul as he comes out to the right-hander to complete lap number 1. So after 1 lap of racing, it's Christopher Samso Jensen who leads ahead of Jeremy Kaufman P2, Artur Zasht in P3 ahead of what is Gustavo Colici P4, Greg DePaul P5 ahead of Cedric Bozia in P6. Then we have one Aragonese Perez in P7 ahead of Michael Struble, then Radoslav Zukowski, followed by Artur Strzelski, who completing your top 10. Stanley Debut is best as P11, but look at this. Meanwhile, the battle for what is P4 here as they go too wide through turn number 4, completing the S's is going to be the Corvette of what is none other than Colucci on the outside. Meanwhile, Dippold on the inside here as they in towards the bus stop chicane, in towards the braking zone they go, and it's going to be Dippold who gets ahead for now. Brilliant manoeuvre in there as we ride on board and look back from the rear of Greg Dippold's car. One place gain since the start and making that happen just there and then. These drivers absolutely locked in right now and locking in the horns as they head down the hill in towards what will be turn number 6. But coming down through the left-hander here, and what you can see already, Dippold starting to break away as that Corvette of Colucci, I don't think is quite in the zone yet. I don't think he's quite got the tyres up to temperature or got the car in the rhythm. Meanwhile, some further progress being made behind, and the driver who started all the way from the back of the field, that's Todd Ali, who we can see here in the light blue Porsche, trying to go around the outside of John Jennings. Too wide, they enter into tow corner, and as they make their way past the stationary cameraman, they are going to emerge too wide still. Neither driver wanting to give in here as they head onwards towards what will be turn number 8 onto the braking zone. They go. There's been an instant further back for Alessio Borghini, and a very aggressive attack there into hill corner from Todd Ali, and he does a fantastic job in the number 2 of taking the place. So another place gained, 5 since the start, and still making progress is the Porsche driver as he heads in towards turn number 10. But coming on through and in towards the next 2 quarters, well, now his next car will be Alba Patan, and Patan will meanwhile be trying to focus on one thing, which is chasing after Jakub Havel, who seems to be struggling a little bit in that BMW as they make their way past the barrier camera there. Wonderful shot that is. It gives you a sense of the momentum with which they attack the corners, and will Havel now under pressure from the fast charging Ferrari and Porsches of what is Patan and Elliott respectively as they head through turn number 1. But coming out to the right hander then and making their way upwards, we look all the way to the front of the field, and this man, Christopher Samso Jensen, has absolutely started to open up a gap on the field, and after what is 2 laps, he's already put 1.5 seconds, 1.60 heads on through the bus stop chicane. He is flying right now with Jeremy Kaufman and Arthur Zash behind, just absolutely trying to keep with him as they roll on down through what is turn number 5 in towards 6. And well, as they make the way onwards, it looks as though that Corvette may just have the legs for the time being, but you never know what can happen over the distance. And indeed, Samso Jensen might be working extremely hard right now, and he may just take the life out of the car as we go deeper and deeper into this race. But meanwhile, taking the life out of the car being a fault here, well, one driver right now absolutely still on the attack as we ride on board with our P19 driver in the number 2 of Todd Ali, who you can see him heading in towards the right hander at turn number 6, looking around the outside here of what will be of none other than Alpa Patan, but Patan gets the inside in turn of Jakub Havel. So now Ali is going to have to try and look for the inside here, follow Patan through, try and get the inside of the BMW on his left hand side, and well, can't quite do so as the 2 in front continue to fight each other hard. Well, it's going to be a bit of a deep run there for none other than Havel, so this could provide an opportunity for Todd Ali to look up the inside into what will be the later corners. He won't be doing that here, of course, because he'll be on the outside run in towards turn number 9, but out he comes and decides to back out of it. And I think he feels as though there's a lot of progress to be made, but right now Ali just cannot seem to find that progress that he covets. But as they come out of 10 and in towards 11, drivers running a bit wide, they're allowed to get away with it to an extent. We look back inside the top 10. And here's a bit of a push and shove. That is Colici being chased down by Cedric Boissier. And Boissier right now pushing up the Corvette driver along as they make the way out of turn 1 in towards turn number 2. And Boissier in the Ford GT. I think he feels like he's got a lot of pace, but the thing he's worried about is losing the Porsche in front. He doesn't want to fight the Corvette if he can get away with it. But that is a little bit of a mixed message in the fact that, of course, you need to make the place at some point. If the driver in front of you is not fast enough, then you are going to need to make the overtake. And I think right now, well, Colici's been given one more chance. They head into bus stop. Meanwhile, speaking of chances here, where's a chance for a fine move, and that is going to be Jean-Philippe Emond up the inside of what is Radoslav Zukowski to take on P11 as they head down in towards turn number 5 and rolling on through. We can see the Rodney Cropper also taking a look for an opportunity. The Ford GT driver now trying to attack as they head in towards turn number 6 down into shoot corner. No such success here as he rolls on through, and this battle right now for P11 between Emond, also there Zukowski, Cropper, Fowler and Coleman is continuing to, oh my goodness, and contact there further back, a spin and a turnaround for none other than Coleman, and Coleman catching that. He had to grind along the barrier a little bit. He was aiding his adventure to do a 360 manoeuvre, and well, in there that could have been far worse. Thankfully it wasn't, and I believe that might have been contact with Stanley Debut unless I'm mistaken, but we will try and get a replay of that very shortly. But that's definitely not the way he wanted it to go. But in the end for Jaroslav Coleman, it could have been far worse, and he's got away with it. But speaking of drivers who haven't got away with things, we take a look back at lap number 2 and what happened to Alessio Borghini. Well, this was Borghini, who'd had a bit of a slow start to this race. I think he'd already had an off, and going in towards turn number 7 here at toe corner, the rear kicks out in that Ford GT. A bit too much tyre temperature there, I suspect, from a previous incident, and Borghini in the end heading to the barrier and losing at the front bumper. But what happened to Jaroslav Coleman, I hear you ask? Well, here is the replay of the incident just now on lap number 4. And this was in battle with none other than, I believe, what was Stanley Debut. They came out of the left-hander, out to shoot, and then Debut comes across, Coleman in the middle of the road. The two intersect one another, and in the end, Coleman sent all the way around, but just about survives it. And, well, that was the story there as we return to your live racing pictures, ladies and gentlemen. And, well, that's Jaroslav Coleman right now, who's absolutely on the move here to try and regain the time he's lost. But still, speaking of time lost, here's Alper Patan battling with Stanley Debut, and also we can see there behind Jakub Havel and Todd Ali is still tucked in behind these three as they head out to the bus stop chicane and down towards turn number 5, this time rolling off the apex and on the move. And as the drivers make the way around here, we can see how Stanley Debut right now just seemingly still trying to hold on as much as possible, but they are opening up the gap to Hayden Fowler, who's in P14 up the road. So therefore right now Fowler is being bought a lot of time, and I suspect he'll be grateful for this and the fact that Debut is just absolutely sticking in it to win it in terms of holding on to that P15 spot. I think the drivers behind him would love an opportunity to make some progress, and Todd Ali in particular getting a very good run there going into toe corner. But you can see here Patan, who's the focus of our attention, heads into turn number 9. He's got a lot of momentum. In fact, into turn number 8 with a lot of momentum. Well, as he makes way through, it's going to be Debut who goes very deep there. Patan's going to now get the run. He'll get the cutback, but the problem is he's now switching back to a left-hander where you've got a blind-sighted elevation change, and also you've got a blind-sighted road surface change. And you can feel it in the car when you transition from the boot road surface onto the cut surface, in the fact the car becomes unsettled, and it's not a place to go for a move by cutting from an outside to an inside line. It completely takes away the stability in a mid-engine rear-wheel drive car, and that's why Patan's had to back out and he can't make this progress. But Patan is throwing everything at this in the battle for 15th place, and well, it's absolutely brilliant racing from him so far. But I think right now he just needs to find that extra 10th. As meanwhile, Ali looking up the inside there of Havel, and Havel will relinquish the position for now. But as they come out of the corner, we look back from the rear of what is Todd Ali's car, and as he heads up the hill through the S's once again, now you'll see the BMW in the tow. It gains little by little by little. It's getting closer and closer, and now here comes the M8 trying to roar its way past with that V8 twin turbo engine absolutely almost taking the camera over the back of Ali's car. That's how close they're getting, but in the end Havel decides to back out. He knows he hasn't got enough momentum. He might be running more rear wing compared to Ali by comparison with the amount of downforce these cars can run, and that might explain the story there as the drivers now make the way down through the right hander. But as they do, well, brilliant racing between them so far, and there is still plenty more to come, no question about it, as we are only the best part of 10 minutes into this 45-minute race. And well, as they make the way on through, just to remind you, you're watching the top split from the 1900 GMT UTC session in the GTE Sprint Series by CONSPIT on iRacing. Strength of field today being at 3,026. The drivers continue to push on, and as they do, well, brilliant racing so far, and well, we've still got a lot of distance to cover, as you can see there further back in the picture now. Havel versus Coleman. It's the battle of the BMWs, and Coleman's going to be up the inside, and I think Jakub Havel at this point might have just backed off a little bit and decided, you know what, I don't think I'm going to be able to hold these places, and I've perhaps pushed myself a little bit too hard. As meanwhile, further behind, we see Marcello Hernan also trying to make some moves on John Jennings as they head out to left-hander, but Jennings right now just holding his ground and holding it nicely as they head in towards turn number 10. Well, we've been looking down the back of the order. Let's look back up towards the front of the order, and here's your race leader as he goes on to lap number 7. It's still Christopher Santo Jensen, and right now the Danishman absolutely flying as he heads onwards. And we look back to Jeremy Kaufman, meanwhile, who is flying in his own right, albeit he is the best part of where it's 8/10 of a second a lap slower than Santo Jensen. And in fact, I believe we can bring up a little bit of statistic to show you the lap time history between the two drivers and just how much of a delta there is. That's on the bottom of the screen right now, and you can see over what has been the last 5 laps, really since the first complete lap of the race, which hasn't been under the race start conditions. That gap has been opening by the average of what has been 6 to 7 tenths a lap by Santo Jensen. He is absolutely flying at the front, and meanwhile Kaufman and Zash behind are just trying to stay with him as they make the way down through turn number 6. Now I do apologise, by the way, with regards to Artur's surname there, in the fact that I'll be completely honest with you, I can't pronounce it correctly, so that's why I'm saying Zash instead of the proper translation for it, but we will get that rectified in the future once done a little bit of learning. But still, as our number 7 driver makes his way out of the corner and onwards towards what will be turn number 8. Doing very well there to stay with Kaufman, and therefore we've still got a brilliant fight on our hands between these two. But you can see the lap times between these two in terms of that delta much closer, and it does seem as though right now Kaufman might be struggling because of the fact he hasn't got a toe. Meanwhile, Zash has got the toe, and therefore he can just continue to tuck in and slave the toe off the back of the car. Oh my goodness, and that's a bit of a major error there for Kaufman, who in the end almost hitting the outside barrier, running off the exit curb. But you can see the front end of the car bouncing around when he hit the curb. Such a low ride height on that Porsche 911 at the front of these two, and therefore that's why we did see that little jump into the air on the grass, and well, that could have been close to tears, but it wasn't quite that time. Meanwhile, further back, well, more fighting still going on the Cookie Monster Mobile, of which Stanley Debut under huge pressure here from Alpa Patan and also Todd Ali as they head down towards the turn number 1 once again, roaring the wound past here, and as they come on down this time around, well, this battle for what is now P15 continuing to intensify, as meanwhile we've had a major off just up the road. That's Radoslav Zukowski, and Zukowski has had a trip off into the distance. Now, what exactly has set that off? Let's take a look back, because I think we might be able to get a replay. In fact, hold the phone for a moment, ladies and gentlemen. We're not going to get a replay just yet, because we might have some battling here, as the Boo's going to try and make his way around the outside on the exit of the S's versus Zukowski, but that BMW's got a lot of grunt behind it. But there's also Patan, there's also Ali, and I think it's going to be a 3 for 1, albeit Ali's not going to be able to try and make it through. In the end, he has to back off and decides not to go for it, and well, taking safety first. I think that's a smart move, but you've got to understand as well, for Todd Ali, that might be a very frustrating moment where he's had to play it safe, for the simple reason he would have loved to have made some more progress. He hasn't quite been able to make it happen, and therefore attacks back in, but Zukowski's going to go wide here, and there's a bit of side-by-side contact between the two of them. I don't think it was intentional. I think that might have just been a little bit of understeer with so much speed being carried in, but Ali gets the place. Now here comes Coleman. Coleman up the inside as well as the two BMW M8s go side-by-side. Coleman looking around the outside there. A lot of oversteer and wheel spin, and in the end, it's going to be Coleman who, in fact, drops behind Zukowski. He didn't quite get it done there, and in the end, they're now having to stay in position as they head in towards turn number 8. They're through the right-hand and up the hill they go, and as they do with these two BMWs have fallen back. In fact, all 3 BMWs all together now. That's Radoslav Zukowski ahead of Jaroslav Coleman and then Jakub Havel, and well, these 3 nose to tail practically, but the BMWs seem to be really struggling here at the midway point of this race. As we head towards the end of the 14th minute, and it does seem as though the deeper they go in, the BMW is just starting to fall off the proverbial cliff. But looking up even further back here, we've still got plenty of fight, and we have got 22 drivers separated by 23 seconds, and Martin Grusha is at the back of those top 22 drivers out of our 24 car starting pack. We do have all 24 runners still running, but Alessio Borghini is a lap down after some early instants, and it does seem as though Sylvain Depesche has fallen quite a way off the pace, which is a shame given the pace we have seen Depesche bring to the racing in recent weeks. But still, as our drivers continue to push on, will we look back up to the fight for P15 here, and well, now there's a bit of exchange going on, as it does look as though Ali is looking to gain the place there, and indeed the light blue Porsche now makes that place in the hands of Todd Ali as they head in towards the bus stop chicane behind Coleman versus Zukowski, and Coleman once again gets alongside for a brief moment. Zukowski simply says, well, you can try it, but I'm not backing out, and therefore Zukowski holds on. Meanwhile, hold on a bit further, Artur Stroszewski is now making another place. In fact, a 1 BMW that's still inside the top 10 is holding on here. The number 22 car being piloted by Stroszewski, and will do a fantastic job there as he gets past none other than Michael Struble, and Struble losing out as they head down towards turn number 8, and boy, it does look as though perhaps Struble at this point might put a bit too much push into that car, and one Aragonese is now closing up as well in the BWT liveried machine, the all pink machine there, as you can see, as they head up the hill and in towards turn number 9 once more. But these Porsche drivers, they're starting to come alive at the bottom end of the top 10 as well, but it does seem as though that BMW Stroszewski might just have an ace up its sleeve, but we've under anticipated or undersold earlier on today, so still plenty of battling to come here over the distance, and well, strategy could be a big part as well. Remember the fact that our drivers started this race on 50% limited fuel tanks, and that means they will not be able to get to the end of the race on a single fuel tank. They will need to pit to make sure they get to the end unscathed on fuel capacity, and that does mean some fuel saving could go a long way, and that may also explain why we have seen some drivers not make moves immediately, such as Cedric Boissier, who was all over the back of Colucci for the opening what was 5 laps. The Ford GT driver, who is the focus of our attention, has actually backed off of Gustavo Colucci, and boy, it now does look as though the top 5 is being allowed to run away a little bit, and Boissier might just be simply trying to move towards strategy, and that is always a full process. If you can't make the gains early on in the race, when do you make a call off and say, you know what, I'm going to get my head down and focus more on just simply staying out of trouble? Well, these drivers are definitely not, as we can see there. Daboo having to hold off. Oh, it's a very, very tight run into the bus stop chicane from none other than Todd Ali, but he gets it stopped just in time. And I thought he was going to make impact to the inside wall there, but not so. And Ali exactly knows how close he can run to that wall. That is for certain as we ride on board here with the number 2 car. Gets very close. Oh my goodness, and catches the car just about there. I think under anticipating just how much we were going to see Daboo have to brake there into turn 6, but Todd Ali absolutely done a fantastic job of stopping that car in time. It has meant that Cropper and Patan have moved back in front, the Ford GT and Ferrari drivers respectively. So a frustrating moment there, but it could have been far, far worse. That's some brilliant car control there, and one, I think just being caught out a little bit. As meanwhile we look back to the exterior pictures, and here you could see Patan and Cropper fighting side by side, and Cropper being attacked by the Ferrari driver as they now head up the rise in towards turn number 9, and he's still there as Cropper in the Ford GT in the number 17, looking to defend it all the way round then in towards turn number 10. Too wide they've gone into the corner, too wide then will come into the left-hander, and where is it going to stop? Where's it going to end? Well, Patan decides to use all the road available and plenty more, and as they head into turn 11, it is going to be Cropper who drops out behind at least. He looks at the cutback here, and the Ford GT driver now attacking as they make their way across the timeline. And meanwhile, here comes Ali. Ali looking up the outside now as Cropper defends the inside into 90 right, and it's going to be the Porsche all the way around the outside. And that Ford GT has been absolutely slandered by the fact that where it should have a lot of pace, it doesn't, because he's been so busy fighting Alpha Patan. And now it looks so Cropper is just being swarmed by all the cars around him. And here comes the big lot of BMWs. Well, you can see there, that's going to be Coleman, Zukowski and Havel. Zukowski and Havel are fighting each other more and more. But meanwhile, Cropper under a lot of pressure here as Ali meanwhile looks up the inside of Patan going into the bus stop chicane, and there is just have Coleman making a move as well as they all swap places. It's an absolute ballet on 4 wheels with an excess of 500 horsepower. It's beautiful to see right now. Ballet at 160 miles an hour. You couldn't make this up, and these guys absolutely ducking and diving in amongst each other, and well, you have to be here to see it right now. And well, as they make the way down through what is turn number 6 in towards 7, it's not over yet as Coleman now trying to hold off Patan and trying to make this move stick as they head in towards toe corner. Behind them there you can see a bit of a dive to the inside from Cropper, who sees the doors open from Zukowski. So 2 by 2 they come through toe corner, onwards they'll go then towards heel, and as they do, well, Coleman just out of camera has moved up ahead of Patan, albeit Patan's on the inside then. You can see the Ferrari in what is the turquoise coloration having to go defensive, and as they make the way for the right hander and up towards what will be turn number 9, it's not over between them. And whilst we haven't got too much fight inside the top 10, we've got plenty of it outside of the top 10, and we love to see it as they make the way out to turn 9. And there is going to be Rodney Cropper having to back out in the Ford GT, otherwise he would have made haste to the outside barrier. Not so, that's not something you want to typically do, and well, he respects the fact that that is not the way to go. As meanwhile, making a major error, there's just have Coleman who runs out wide at turn 10, falls off the exit curb, and that's going to completely take away his momentum. We've got a car into the pits in the rear picture. That's Jennings coming in, so Jennings is pulling the plug here on an early pit stop. I think that's going to be for strategy to try and get a bit of an undercut, but how well will it work out for him is the question. As meanwhile, Martin Grusha looked up the inside there at Marcello Hernan, and Hernan in the end in the Corvette just simply takes the normal racing line there and does not worry about it at all. That's confidence from Hernan. But meanwhile, looking back up to the long line of cars all queuing up behind Alpha Patan as Todd Ali has already put 3 seconds between himself and this battle. So in the end, he's got the pace to break away. He just needs to find a way through and essentially negotiate what's been a very, very tight and tantalising pack. Well, it's 5 wide then, style formation as they head in towards the bus stop, but it's gone very wrong for Coleman, and also where's Havel end up collecting each other through the bus stop, and the 2 of them come to an abrupt halt. They don't hit the barrier, but their races now go very, very backwards, and we'll get a replay on that shortly, but that must have been very fine margins which set off. We only caught it for a very limited camera angle, but that is going to be a big story of the battle to be inside the top 15 towards the end of today, I feel. But as they bring themselves back together, well, meanwhile, we look back up to the where's P5, and this is Cedric Boissier, who right now has got a long queue of cars falling up behind him, and that's Boissier, Kulici, Strzelczewski and also Struble all line up together, and Aragonés is only a further 6/10 of field there in what is the pink Porsche and is closing. So therefore we have got a long line of cars all forming up, and that is going to be a 5-way battle for P5 at this rate, with the top 4 seemingly just disappearing off into the distance. And whatever pace Boissier had early on to really frustrate and be all over the back of Dippold, he hasn't got it anymore. As meanwhile, Gustavo Kulici says, you know what, I don't want to be part of this anymore. Aragonés does the same as well. They both decide to pit early, and this could be a very smart move for them. They've got to be careful, however, because they trip over each other's toes coming out of the pit lane, they may cost each other more time than what they aim to gain. But whilst they're making their way down the pit lane, let's take a look back at that major battle into the bus stop chicane and how it all unfolded for Coleman and Havel. riding on board here with none other than what was Jaroslav Coleman, and keep in mind he's at the front of this field, and you can see there a bit of a loss of the rear of the car, and in the end I think losing the rear going into the bus stop chicane and then being tapped by the car of Jakob Havel just set off the chain reaction. We take a look at the perspective meanwhile of what was Jakob Havel, and we look from one of the exterior cameras here, swapping to the inside, almost making it fall wide for a moment, and as he did, well there you can see what's happened is Coleman's lost the rear of the car, put the brakes on, it's locked. Meanwhile, evasive action being taken from Zukowski, and then Havel's had to pick one way or the other, and in the end he's decided to try and go around the outside of it all, but with the fact that we did see what was none other than Coleman losing the car and being gradually pushed to the outside by natural inertia, that is what happened to Jakob Havel, and that explains the full story. But meanwhile, we return to your live racing pictures, and as we do, we now near the halfway point of this race, and we look from towards the back of the field. Our drivers have come out, Colucci ahead of Aragonese. They're literally nose to tail on each other here, so this strategy might work out for them, but it does become the whole question of, is the enemy of my enemy is my friend, or is that saying not going to stick true, because these two need to arguably work together now over the course of the next 3 to 4 laps for that pit window to really be of use to them, because they have gone for the ultimate undercut. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, a man who doesn't have to really worry about strategy right now other than get the car in the pit lane and do it the proper way, I don't speed and also get into your pit box at the right time, is Christopher Samson Jensen, as right now he's absolutely flying out there, and well, his pace on average has been the strongest of everybody, although saying that, over the last lap I can tell you that Samson Jensen has in fact lost half a second to this man of Jeremy Kaufman. So is our Corvette leader now starting to feel a little bit of tyre wear pickup, and alternatively could he just be backing off the throttle and trying to save some fuel, or is he worried about the fact that he might have an extended pit stop time? Well, those are questions, but that's a lot of questions in a simple period of time. We'll only get the answers when we see him come into the pits and in the run up to that pit stop, but it is food for thought in terms of could we potentially see Samson Jensen lose out over the pit window, and could we actually result in this field getting close together? So our Corvette driver has run away early on, but is he going to be able to run away for the full distance? Well, we'll have to see what Kaufman and Zaj can do here, as these two right now are continuing to push each other in the battle for P2. Greg Dippold 1.2 seconds behind in P4, and just watching at the distance the three Porsches here. It's like the three Musketeers, albeit they've all got absolutely roaring, screaming six-cylinder engines in them as they come down towards what is turn number 8, and we're on to the brakes they go once again. But as they do, well, meanwhile, we see there has been a swap between Aragonese and Gustavo Colici, and one Aragonese has moved ahead in the run to the bus stop chicane. I get the feeling that Colici might have just simply let off the throttle and let his rival stroke friend at the moment go, because keep in mind these two need to work together and not fight each other, otherwise they lose plenty of time over the distance, and they will essentially have scuppered their chances of being able to leapfrog their way back towards the very front of what was that battle for P5 before the drivers came into the pit. So that is going to be on their minds, and well, I think the red mist between them is not going to descend at any point, and therefore the thought process will be, well, let's just make sure we don't cost each other this one, because we could be fighting for P5 and it could just be the two of us at the end of this race. Speaking of their rivals, will we look at them as they roar on through, and will these two drivers be expected to be far behind them given where they were in circuit when the pit stop started? But we're looking here at P11 battle for Stanley Debut and Todd Ali, and Ali who started from P24 from the very back of the field has already halved his way out the pack. I don't think it's going to quite be a last to first change, although you never know, you never say never until that checker flag waves and a driver crosses that finish line. And right now, Ali all over the back of Stanley Debut, and Debut in the Cookie Monster machine. Well, I can tell you one thing, he's going to capture the hearts of many a spectator, but right now what he's also going to capture is with a load of dirty air, which is going to wash over the front of Ali's car, and in doing so, we'll give him the time on the straights, but he'll cause the Porsche driver behind to perhaps struggle a little bit in the corners unless he set the car up to run with a loss of downforce, and indeed in that dirty air. Well, as we come towards the end of the 25th minute, the battles calm down for a brief moment, and speaking of the battles in strategy, well, here's the big talking point with regards to the battle for P5, because this is the driver in P5 right now, Cedric Boissier, as he comes out to the right-hander of turn number 7 and in towards 8. He'll go once again, and Boissier right now of the mindset, I suspect, of I've just got to run this through, and Artur Strzelecki also will be feeling the same way in the fact that he can't afford to battle in that BMW M8, because otherwise they could both be leapfrogged by Aragonese and Colici, who are down in 19th and 20th respectively. It is quite a long pit time here at Watkins Glen. The fact the total pit time loss that we did see, or the pit length time we should really say, not the pit time loss, given the fact we need to do some mental maths, was the best part of 43 seconds for both Aragonese and Colici, and as these drivers make their way on through a slide there on entry onto the apex of turn 11 for Strzelecki, and well, that is a sign that the tyres are starting to perhaps go away, albeit ideally you don't want to change tyres if you can help it, or just change the limited set as they make their way onto turn number 1 once again. Jeremy Kaufman into the pit lane, so Kaufman decides enough's enough in running in P2 for so long. He's going to have to now bring it on in with 26 minutes complete, albeit obscured there by what is all the pit stalls, and well, that releases after Zash as he heads up towards what will be the bus stop chicane once again. No corner numbers given to the bus stop chicane, intriguingly enough. It's just turn 4, bus stop chicane, and then turn 5, which he's making his way into now. And well, I'm not quite sure what the history behind that is. I think it might be in respect to the fact the bus stop was added as an addition and was technically the last addition made to the Watkins Glen International circuit beyond the boot layout also being added, i.e. the actual boot context of the circuit, which we're seeing him make his way into here at turn 6 through to 9, and as he comes down in towards turn number 7, keeping it together. Meanwhile, too wide here, and that is going to be in the rundown chute corner. Ali on the inside, it's Stanley DeVille on the outside here, and this is only going one way, and as we look back from the rear of Todd Lee's car, it is going the way of what is the number 2, making more places. A flash of the lights there from DeVille. Now, whether there's been some contact between the two of them, but we're not sure about it. Alternatively, it's just simply that DeVille is trying to get into his rival's head. Well, we'll get a replay of that shortly as to how that move was made, but it does look as though Ali making another place, and that pace is continuing to stay strong here for our Porsche 911 driver as he makes his way out of Hill Corner. And in fact, we do have a replay to explain what exactly happened in that battle. Well, this was them making the way out of the bus stop chicane, and Lee getting the better run. A mistake there from Stanley DeBoo, and as they made the way on around through the loop and down towards chute they went. Well, Lee absolutely committed to the cause here. Onto the brakes he went into turn 6, and that is how he got the move done. So I suspect the flash of lights there might have been more to try and scare rather than anything else, because it doesn't look as though there was any contact prior to that, unless we missed something in the actual bus stop itself. But Lee gaining that place there quite successfully. But coming back to your live pictures, and as we do and our drivers continue to charge on here, the race distance absolutely going all the way. Well, we do look to Todd Ali as he now holds on to P3, albeit not having taken a pit stop as yet, so therefore there's still plenty of play for. And with Artur Zash coming out of the pit lane, here he comes, and where is Kaufman? Kaufman in fact has lost out here, so Zash has gained through the pit, and with the difference in time, the pit time and stationary time was 2.5 seconds longer for Kaufman compared to Zash, and that's why they swapped places as Zash just makes his way past our cameraman there, and as they head up towards what will be turn number 4, well, Kaufman will be now wary of the fact that Greg Dippold is still right behind him, but meanwhile Zash has disappeared off the road by 2.8 seconds. You can see that in the distant camera shot as the clouds are starting to come over here in the state of New York. No sign of rain on the cards, but we can definitely tell you it's getting cloudy, and with that track temperature might start to stop rising, instead stay stagnant, if not potentially fall away a little bit as we get towards the end of the race. Albeit I get the feeling it will stay stagnant at the very worst rather than drop away, and therefore our drivers now will need to keep in mind those conditions are changing a little bit, and those changing conditions could mix things up. But meanwhile, in what is the battle for P9, this is Juan Aragonés, Michael Struble, and also Gustavo Colici as they head down through turn number 6, and Colici now finding he can't work with his partner anymore as they make the way onwards towards what will be toe corner, and we are right on board here with the number 5 car of Colici as the Argentine makes his way on through the right-hander. And what you can see here, just not in a happy place right now, in the fact that Aragonés having the better run of pace at this midpoint of the race after the pit stop. And meanwhile, as I look at my contact booth window, a bit of context, Samso Jensen and Emil Stanciu into the pit lane from P1, P2 respectively, and also got Ali coming in. We'll have to wait and see how much he's gained as a result of staying out the longest of anyone in that midfield battle. But right on board here with Colici, no move forthcoming versus Struble, but I think they'll be trying to just simply work together with the rivals around them for now. But it does look as though Aragonés might be gaining a bit of race time here and starting to push onwards as they head towards the next lap. But now we'll find out exactly where everyone's going to come out of the pits, as here is Rodney Cropper, the car being parked up there. Meanwhile, we do see making his way out of the pit lane Stanciu. Where's he going to rematerialise? Well, he doesn't quite come back out where we perhaps thought he would. He's going to come out in the end in what will be P9, so in fact avoids all of the chaos around him. Meanwhile, Todd Ali comes out here and comes back out in P11, side by side with Strzelecki, and well, this is a brilliant amount of gain for the Porsche 911 driver. Ali, in the fact that he's moved himself all the way from P12 ahead of Fowler now into P11, but the most important thing is he's practically come out dead level with Strzelecki, and he's going to look for the move here immediately, albeit those tyres won't be back up to temperature quite, but he's not going to worry worry about that, as he's going to take on the sole BMW inside the top 10 and relegate it out, but can't quite find it at the moment, and Ali has to back off there, as Fowler meanwhile all over the back, and it's a pour over the bus stop there for Ali, and as a result Fowler now is going to look for an opportunity, but Fowler goes way too deep into the outer loop and therefore will lose all the momentum he gained. Cropper meanwhile has come back out in P17, so has lost a lot of time as a result of going for the overcut strategy in the pit lane. And we can take a look back here to what is the four cars altogether. There is Rodney Cropper in the Ford GT. Side by side in front of him is Jennings versus Hernan, and meanwhile Cropper is still battling with Zukowski in the BMW that was right behind him. So right now we've had a big strategic shuffle, and the biggest loser in all the strategy battle has been Cropper. Meanwhile the biggest gainer in all of it has been Ali, quotably, and also Emil Stansiu, who's in P9 and in a very solid P9 off camera currently, as our drivers now make the way into the final third of this race. But there's still distance. There's still the fact that a number of drivers may have just decided to put fuel in the car rather than take any tyres. In fact, I get the feeling that all drivers have only taken fuel, given their static times in the pit lane have been less than 14 seconds, and therefore it does mean now tyre management is going to be key. And could we see some drivers fall off the proverbial cliff over the later race distance? Well, it's very easy to do so. It's very easy to push these cars too hard. And remember, for the uninitiated, by comparison with GT3s, which have replaced the GTE in the likes of the FIA World Endurance Championship or the WEC, these cars have traction control, but they do not have ABS or anti-lock braking systems. The only braking systems they have is the one done by the driver. It's called manual foot control or human intervention. And as they head across the timeline here, we'll still more battling to come from all the drivers, no question about it. But who are going to be the ones who put on the big battles? Well, we look back up to P6 here, and also Aragonés has been a big gainer in all of it, albeit Cedric Boissier has moved 4 seconds clear. So the Ford GT driver has cemented that what is P5 position, and now it does look as though Aragonés is at the head of the rest of the pack as they make the way on through the outer loop. And what I believe we had a bit of a moment further back for what is none other than Ali versus what is Debut, and they've all dropped down. In fact, I think we've had a major incident from what I'm hearing in my ear, and we will have to try and get a replay of what's happened very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. But we're staying with the battle here for now, and well, as we do look inside the top 10, the top 5 have broken away and are all relatively static at this time. And what I'm hearing in my ear, that Ali is falling even further down the order, but Aragonés, Colici and Schreibel are all fighting over P6. These three drivers together, you've seen them on screen right now, and Aragonés is the one who holds on to that position at this time. But meanwhile, we got a replay, and this explains, I believe, what's happened to Todd Ali over the last lap. This was down into turn number 1, battling side by side there with Strzelecki as they made the way through 90 right. And as they came on out here, well, it was a drag race up the hill, and this is to be expected. 2 wide they went into the S's, giving each other plenty of room initially. Do they close up here for the second bar of the S's? No. Ali, they have a little bit of slide. You'll notice giving too much space, almost hitting the wall, but not quite. And still ahead of Strzelecki for the time. But now the BMW is going to come on strong. We do have the Corvette trying to get involved here. So Ali doing a fantastic job initially through the S's to get the position. Does it go wrong there in the bus stop? Bounce over the curb. The rear of the car comes, oh goodness me, and that explains it. And Ali in the end, does he get it away from the wall? He does. It's a brilliant car control, and Todd Ali doing a fantastic job there. But I wonder if the tap and the push over the curb has perhaps damaged the suspension on the left hand side, because it looked as though that car's had to come to a close. But in the end, 2 wide they went into was the bus stop, and I think Strzelecki didn't want to back out, and well, in the end making contact there. And well, that is what's happened to Todd Ali's race. And in fact, the car has in recent moments had to be taken to the pits for repair work, and that's very unfortunate for the driver who started from the back of the field and was on course for a top 10 finish, but in the end falling foul there to the BMW M8 in that close battle. And well, they might have a chat about it afterwards to decide who exactly was right, who was wrong, and what could have been done better. But still got to give credit to Ali for a fantastic drive up to that point. Meanwhile, we've got 3 wide here. You don't normally see that, and well, that is a man who's almost done the Moses manoeuvre there from John Jennings in P15 now as he picks his way past Marcello Hernan and also Rodney Cropper. Cropper, meanwhile, the Ford GT still sitting on the outside as they make the way on through the chute corner and now up towards Toe they'll go. And as they do, in towards that braking zone, we can see Zukowski behind, still watching and waiting in the wings here. And well, Cropper with a bit of a slide, a lot of power oversteer. In fact, those rear tyres, I think, on that Ford GT must be absolutely fried, because to slide like that, and we've still got 10 minutes to go, he's been pushing extremely hard. And Cropper now, I think it might be struggling in the closing stage of this race just to keep it pointed in a straight line coming out the corners, let alone take those corners at full attack. back, but as they make the way up the rise, we'll have to wait and see what Cropper can do. We can definitely do better than me, I can tell you that. And as he comes out to the left-hander, up towards turn number 10, well, now he's at the back of this four-way fight for what is a P15 led by John Jennings, and we'll have to wait and see it when the next battle inside this group materialises. But meanwhile, from them, we look a little bit further back to Joseph Coleman and also Jakob Hevel as they head out of turn number 11. And well, the BMWs right now trying to chase after Martin Grusha, who has gained on them as a result of the pit stops and move ahead. So the BMW drivers here have in fact fallen away further so. Meanwhile, Martin Grusha seems to have come alive the deeper and deeper we've gone into this race, well, as they make their way through 90 right. In terms of drivers still in this race, we've still got 22 out of our 24 starters out on circuit. We did have the early retirement for Bikini, and we recently have had to come to the pit lane. Ali's had to crawl the car to the pit lane after that damage to the bus stop, and we're not quite sure whether we will see that Porsche 911 make its way back on circuit. Number 2 may have to have a premature retirement. But meanwhile, as we look to Aragonés in P6, he heads out of turn number 6 and down towards 7, still holding on to 6th place. Our top 5 have roughly spaced themselves out to the best part of which 3 to 5 seconds between each car. So therefore, the top 5 right now is going to be more about who makes a mistake late on in this race. But meanwhile, for the drivers that are still on the charge here, for P6, well, Aragonés is holding on for now, but you would imagine as he goes a little bit deeper here, will he have the tyre life to his advantage? Has he taken the right amount of fuel? That's always another question as well. Could he perhaps have underfueled intentionally to get to the head of this pack, hoping he would have been on the back of the P5 battle versus Boissier, but has not been able to find it? And if so, well then Colucci, also Struber and Stanciu may just gain. And in fact, the one driver you've got to be mindful of in this four-way fight is Emil Stanciu. And the reason I say that, this is a driver who started P15 and at the start of today played it safe, stayed out of trouble, and he's gained massively in the pits as well to move himself. And with these 3 drivers in front all battling, he's now on the back of this battle. He could yet steal away a P6 finish if all it's said and done, but it's going to be a huge error there from which the Porsche of Michael Strobel, who I think too close to the rear of what was Colucci's car coming into 90 right, and as a result tapping the rear of it under braking, and the retardation forces essentially snapped the rear of that Porsche loose, and well, Strobel falls in that battle, and he's now got Artur Suzuki closing up behind. But meanwhile, Gustavo Colucci, oh my goodness, and there's contact. Stanciu and Colucci come together as they make the way down the straight. The cars roll aside. Do they avoid collecting anybody? The answer is yes. Everybody takes evasive action, but that is a huge moment there, and Matt, 2 drives out of it, and it feels as though it's the commentator's curse, given the fact we're only praising Stanciu a minute ago, and well, now his race is in tatters. And we'll have to take a look back at what happened very shortly. But Stanciu and Colucci having a huge coming together there down the straight in towards the bus stop chicane and completely upsetting their races. But what exactly happened is the big question. Well, first up, we need to understand what happened to Michael Strubel, and what I believe, ladies and gentlemen, we might be able to get a replay of that. And in fact, we are about to get that replay very shortly, unless I'm mistaken, as our drivers continue to roar on here. And with regards to Michael Strubel, well, here is the story. This is in the run. In fact, this was on a earlier lap, so we do apologise. This was originally what was Colucci making the bus and Strubel down to the bus stop chicane on lap number 18, and more straightforward pass. But then we did have Morten Stanciu making his way past Strubel into 90 right, only moments to go, and well, in the end, getting too close to the back of Colucci's car and Strubel tapping the rear, and well, Stanciu making his way on through. But then we saw Colucci had gone deep, so that was the consequence of the tap on the rear by Strubel to Colucci's car. But what happened between them as they made the way on through? Let's listen in. And as we can see, they're looking around the outside, and Stanciu in the end just holding that outside line with 2 wheels on the grass, and Colucci coming across it would seem based on that perspective, and well, the 2 intersecting each other, and Stanciu will be absolutely fuming at that. He'll feel as though he had the momentum, and well, from his perspective at least, it'll be that Colucci made a double move across in order to cut him off, and well, that's something you can't do it, increasing speed out of the S's, but Colucci has his own side of the story to tell, so therefore we're not going to point the fingers, but the 2 drivers' races are respectively now coming to an abrupt end. Meanwhile, whilst all that's been going on, and we're back to your live pictures now with 6 minutes on the final lap to go, well, here's Artur Zursch ahead of what is Jeremy Kaufman, and Kaufman has closed up dramatically in the last couple of laps, and in fact we can show you the lap time delta between them at the bottom centre of your screen, and well, that is from the leader from Zursch to the leader, in terms of the fact the leader of what is Samso Jensen has just pulled away, particularly on lap 21, gaining almost 1.5 seconds, but when we invert it to essentially show what has been the lap time difference between Zursch and Kaufman, well, there you can see in the fact Kaufman was slower initially, and then a whole second was lost, and a further second between laps 21 and 22. So 2 seconds lost in the space of 2 laps. And I get the feeling that Artur Züst may be having a major issue here with regards to tyre life right at the closing stage of this race, and that is what's enabling Jeremy Kaufman in order to catch up. But as they head down towards turn number 1, in towards 90 right, with the 2 drivers here coming on down, Kaufman takes a sneak peek to the inside, can't quite find it at the moment as we ride on board, giving a bit of space there to Ali, who's come out of the pit lane to carry on the story, albeit multiple laps down, but it's great to see him giving it everything, getting back out there to go racing once again. And Jeremy Kaufman, meanwhile, now gaining a bit here in the toe as we take a look at the speed in the bottom right hand corner. You can see already up to 160 miles an hour, now slowly gaining in the draft, and well, as they make the way into the braking zone here, 2 wide they enter into the bus stop chicane. Züst is going to simply defend to the inside of the entry point, and Kaufman backs out as they head in towards turn number 5. And well, this is now going to be the challenging story for Kaufman. Where can he look for the move? Because I get the feeling that Kaufman may be running a bit more rear wing compared to his rival, and therefore he can slowly gain, but not enough to overhaul. And well, Watkins Glen, it is a high downforce circuit, but if you can get away with taking just a small bit of rear wing off these cars, what it enables you to do is carry more speed on the limited straights, and that can be enough, combined with your braveness on the brakes, in order to make moves happen. That's the thing with Watkins. You've really got to run those out. It's a momentum circuit, and in these closing stages, you now need everything to come together. And here comes Kaufman looking up the inside. All in on the brakes he goes. And for Kaufman, does he make it work? Yes, he does, as it's going to be Züst who just simply lets the car go and drops back to P3. Taking that outside line, I don't think he's got any life left in the car. And Jeremy Kaufman, whilst he lost out in the pits, he's managed this race very well with the distance, particularly on tyre life, it would seem. And Kaufman is back up into P2, which is where he was in the early stages, having started P4, and he's not looking back. Meanwhile, one driver who we need to also talk a little bit about is the number 10 of Greg Dippold, who really has just watched at the distance in P4. He's not been quite fast enough to challenge for a podium, but he's just been in arm's reach every time, and I get the feeling he might be a thorn on the mind of many a driver in front of him, in the fact that they have a small mistake, whether it be Züst or Kaufman, they're going to lose out on a podium to this man who's been an ever-present threat. Looking a bit further back, meanwhile, outside of what is the top 5, but definitely inside the top 10, you're looking here at what is the battle for P7 between Michael Struble and their Strzelecki, as Strzelecki comes across the timeline. Our sole BMW still inside that top 10 as he comes through at 90 right at turn 1. Will Stanley DeBoo and Hayden Fowler, well, they're a little bit further back. They're not quite close enough, but that BMW now, its twin-turbo V8 engine versus the 6 cylinders of the Porsche, gets in very, very close indeed. Struble, as he looks for the opportunity to defend, and well, meanwhile, Strzelecki now looking to go around the outside. The BMW, he's got the legs here, and I get the feeling this might be a nose ahead before the bus stop, and in fact it's fully ahead of Struble. Says, you know what, I'm backing out of this, there's no point fighting, I'll get you later on in the lap, which is where the Porsche will become stronger as soon as we go into the boot loop section. But as they come down through turn number 5, with Strzelecki there making it look like clockwork in terms of just taking the place and then charging off in P7. A lovely move from the BMW driver. Michael Struble being quite compliant, but I think also mindful of the fact his race maybe now started to hit a bit of a strategic bump in terms of tyre life. Meanwhile, looking a bit further back, one driver who we talked about a lot early on in this race was none other than Alper Patan, who was right in the thick of it, fighting inside the top 15. He's over the back of Jean-Philippe Emond as they head in towards turn number 7. Looking up the inside, the Ferrari goes for a late move there. Emond sees it coming, tries to close the door as much as possible. These two fight each other absolutely brilliantly, but there you can see Patan with a little bit of excess wheel spin on the exit. That's going to cost him the ability to make the move, and there's going to be the defence from Wes Emond, as meanwhile Patan looks around the outside. Good move here from Patan, and we can see Emond still fighting it. They're brilliant in terms of the batting rim they're giving each other, and will respect being shown. And as they head in towards turn number 9, neither driver wants to give in here as they make the way for a left hand. But Patan, once again, you can see just a small element of oversteer on that tight line, and therefore he loses out the traction he needs to finish the move into turn 10, and that gives Emond an opportunity just to stay ahead for one more corner at least, as they make the way onto what likely will be the penultimate lap. Again, our race leader is already at turn number 5, and we've got 1.5 minutes to go. Meanwhile, we look back here to the battle for P3, because Züst has now fallen into the clutches of Dippold. Remember what we said earlier, Greg Dippold has been watching, he has been waiting, he has been absolutely patient. You would think the man was playing chess, whereas everybody else was playing checkers in terms of how patient he's been. And as they come out of turn 5 down towards 6, in towards the left-hander they go, and as they do off camera, Deboo's got ahead of Struble, but meanwhile on camera, no change at the moment between Züst and Dippold, but Dippold is right there and is waiting for the opportunity. You can see the body language in terms of the fact the way we're seeing the camera move on the rear of Züst's car car as he moves the car across the road. He's under huge pressure here because he's not taking smooth lines to transition from one corner to the next. He's worried about needing to go defensive as they head down towards Hill Corner, and we've got a bit more breathing room, so perhaps he can breathe for a little bit, but I think that mental pressure is definitely now starting to get to Zouche as they come up the hill in towards turn number 9. Looking further back, Struble has been passed by Stanley Deboo off camera, and well, the big question will be, how did Deboo make that move happen? We will try and get a replay of that when we can, but now you can see that Hayden Fowler is looking for a move of his own in the blue and gold Corvette C8R as they come out of the right hand and up towards what will be turn 9 they go. Our race leader has already gone to lap number 27. Looking at my contact with window, Samson Jensen has gone on to the final lap of racing here today in this top split at Watkins Glen, and meanwhile all the fighting is going onwards between our drivers all the way up and down the field. Now it seems as though those who didn't manage their tyres early on are now paying the penalty and the price, and well, speaking of a price being paid, this was the move only moments ago by Stanley Deboo on what was Michael Struble. And it was coming down towards the bus stop chicane, and we're on the inside. There was Stanley Deboo in the Cookie Monster Porsche and getting the move done very, very nicely indeed. Struble tried to come back in on the exit, but it was all Stanley Deboo who had it in control. But coming up back to your live pictures, and we look back up here to the battle for P3, as we can see there Artur Zouche still trying to hold on for a little bit longer as he makes his way out of turn number 5, and well, Jeremy Kaufman up the road by 1.4 seconds, will be gifting a very small distant tow to Zouche, but it won't be enough to really affect the battle right now or affect the aerodynamics over the top of what is the number 7 Porsche P3, but you can imagine it's all going to be very close between them all the way to the end. In terms of one small mistake could open this battle back up, or it could see the battle close down immediately. So as the drivers head out to turn number 8 in towards 9 in due course, we'll start to see if there's any move encroaching, as meanwhile when we look to one man who really has been in a world of his own since the start of the race, having put the car on pole by a favourable few tenths of a second, it never looked as though it was going to be easy for anyone to catch him, but early on in the race he showed exactly that by pulling distance on his rivals, and as he comes on through the final corner and the checker flag waves, your winner today at Watkins Glen International will be Christopher Samson Jensen from Denmark as he crosses the line there by a dominant 8 seconds over his rivals. A brilliant drive for the number 4 Corvette ahead of Jeremy Kaufman, who did well to recover to P2 over the distance, and then Artur Zouche will come on P3 ahead of Greg Dippold, and then it will be in P5 coming out of the final corner none other than Cedric Boissier. A fantastic job for the Ford GT driver who simply kept his calm when everybody else was going red around them. Juan Aragonés is going to come home in P6 ahead of Artur Strzelecki, and it'll be Stanley Deboo in P8 ahead of Michael Struble P9, Hayden Fowler across the line P10 in what has been a brilliant drive back into the top 10 for the P19 starter. Albert Batan finishes P11 just ahead of Jean-Philippe Emond. He did find a way through right at the end between the two of them, and it'll be John Jennings in P13 ahead of Rodney Cropper, with Marcello Hernan completing the top 15 ahead of Radoslav Zukowski. Jakub Hevel will finish P17, and it'll be Sylvain Depeche who completes the running order on the lead lap with P18 there for the number 1 driver, and a frustrating day today, no doubt about it. But what a race, ladies and gentlemen, and I do believe all drivers are classified as finished. The results are coming in, and here they are, the provisional results for this top split race in week 6 of the 2025 season 1 of the iRacing official GTE Sprint Series by CONSPIT. After 45 minutes of race distance and 27 laps encapsulated within that, Christopher Samson Jensen absolutely dominant up front, the Danishman ahead of the American Jeremy Kaufman. Behind them in P3 it was Artur Zouche who completed the podium, just holding off the charge of Greg Dippold to the end, albeit it does look as though the American driver had a lot of pace, but he didn't have much tyre life, and that's what cost him when he tried to make the moves. Meanwhile, Cube Racing's Cedric Boissier, the Ford GT, finishing at P5 ahead of Juan Aragonés, and then we did see Artur Strzelecki P7 ahead of Stanley Deboo, with Michael Struble and Hayden Fowler completing your top 10. P11, it was Alper Patan who just finished ahead of Jean-Philippe Emond, the Canadian driver just missing out there, but still a brilliant battle between the two of them for the best of the rest slot in P11. John Jennings in P13 ahead of Rodney Cropper, and Marcello Hernan completed the overall top 15. Radoslav Zukowski at P16 ahead of Jakub Havel, and then completing what was the top 20 there, as we can see, Sylvain Depeche, who was your last lead lap finisher, Finishing 4 laps down apiece, Yaroslav Coleman, P19, and Todd Elliott, P20. You've got to feel for the American, who did very well starting from the back of the field to carve his way into the top 10, but a late issue between himself and his rivals saw him put all the way to the back, and in the end, finishing P20. He will feel as though that's not representative of what he could accrue today. Martin Grusha, P21 with a late retirement, 5 laps down. The same for Gustavo Colici, and then 6 laps down to Emil Stanciu after that late contact down the straight up towards the bus stop chicane between Stanciu and Colici, which saw both drivers retire from the race. A major one from that one. I think both of them will be looking back at that afterwards. And then we had our sole retiree early on in the race, Alessio Borghini, the Italian driver, who in the end able to get 7 laps in before they had to retire the car. So 24 starters, and in the end we did see a grand total of 19 finishers, or in fact I do believe it was 22 finishers I should say, 18 of which on the lead lap. But my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, what a day of racing here at the Watkins Glen International Circuit. Indeed, it had frills, it had spills, it had a little bit of everything, and that's exactly what Watkins Glen International is known for, and that's why it's not only referred to as the Glen, and has a special place in the hearts of not just American road racers, but road racers around the world and motorsport fans with it. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's Top Split broadcast in what is the GTE Sprint Series by CONSPIT, and you want to tune in for even more racing action, well, these are going to be regularly held on Fridays at what will be that 1900 hours Greenwich Mean Time, or GMT, or Universal Coordinate Time, UTC time slot, and we will be back on Friday the 31st of January in a week's time to see our drivers take on for week number 7, the Autodromo International Algarve, also known as the Portimao Circuit, or the Algarve International Circuit. Who will come out on top through the twists and turns of Portugal? Well, we'll continue the story then to see how drivers get on. But until then, we've been the GT Sprint Series by CONSPIT. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, have a great weekend ahead, ladies and gentlemen, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.